Welcome to The Focused View, the podcast for eye care professionals across Australia. Brought to you by Optical. In each episode, we bring together leading eye care, optical and business professionals to share valuable insights, practical tips, and the latest trends shaping the optical business landscape. I'm your host, Michael Nasser, and together we'll explore innovative strategies for practice growth, patient care, and business success in the eye care industry. Whether you're starting your career, managing a practice, or just looking to stay ahead of the field, The Focused View is your source for inspiration and knowledge. In today's episode, we're joined by a guest who's been instrumental in shaping the optical profession through education and advocacy, James Gibbins. As the Director of Education at the Australian College of Optical Dispensing, James has helped thousands of optical assistants and dispensers across Australia and New Zealand gain nationally accredited qualifications and practical skills that truly elevate patient care. With a deep understanding of both the challenges and opportunities facing our profession, James brings a wealth of insight into two critical areas, training and recruitment. In this conversation, we'll explore the current training gap impacting untrained optical assistants, why recruitment is tougher than ever, and how practices can build a more sustainable, skilled workforce for the future. Whether you're an optometrist, business owner, or dispenser, this episode is packed with practical advice and strategic insights to help you invest in your people and prepare for the future of our profession. Let's get into it. James, welcome to the show.
G'day, Michael.
Really excited to talk to you today about, the topic in focus, which is training in particular, and we'll touch on some recruitment as part of the process and some of the challenges that are faced in either of those particular points when we're talking about the optical profession. But before we get into it, can you tell us a bit about your journey into the optical profession and how you became so passionate about training?
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having us on your program, Michael. It's great to be here. And I do love chatting about optics, and my journey's a little different to a lot of other journeys. They're all unique. For me, it started quite a while ago, 1983. So I've been around the industry for quite a while. And I fell into optics like happens for a lot of people. I was just looking actually for a gap year job before I went off to a particular college that I wanted to go to. Looking for that job for that year, fell into a practice, a busy, lovely, vibrant practice in Manly. I was working there for a few months, loving it. And the business owners there said, why don't you do the course? And then I rejigged my life then and thought, I'll put my next college target off for a little bit. And so I did the course, went through Ultimo, did the course, absolutely loved it, got that qualification, which has been the mainstay of my life. Having that qual means you can move around our industry so easily. Chuffed off to Bible college, did that for a couple of years. Then for many, many years was doing optical at the same time as church work and sort of thing. But having the optical qualification meant that I had access to part-time jobs, all sorts of better pay scales coming and going. Then come along to 1997, so about 15 years later or so, then I applied for a part-time position with TAFE. So I started teaching at TAFE. It was the old Sydney Ultimo College there, teaching alongside, for some of your older listeners, people like Martin Aston, Peter Drury, and absolutely loved it. I've done all sorts of Bible teaching in churches for years. Now I'm teaching optical knowledge at the college. Loved that. Instantly got a part-time job as well with O10, which was another TAFE college, working there with David Wilson and Steve Darris, more legends of the industry, and worked in the TAFE system mainly for years. Still working some part-time optical jobs here and there, independent, corporate, I got a year of teaching experience at UNSW, teaching the optometry students there. That was absolutely fascinating. And so enjoying optics, loving it to bits, doing lots of teaching here and there. And then the big change came in 2017. At that stage, TAFE was pretty poorly funded, pretty poorly managed, if I can say that sensitively. And in 2016, spoke to a good mate, a teacher colleague, Chetty Kalich, who a lot of people know as well, and said to Chetty, how about an independent college, Chedster? Enrollments at that stage were going down. teaching positions were being cut. Management at the TAFE system, not interested in growing. And we launched ACOD in 2017. And Mike, that's about 8 years ago now. And today, ACOD is all over Australia and New Zealand, absolutely loving this space that we're in at the moment. So there's a little summary of my journey, and it's been a joy.
And our paths have crossed as well, because I was a student of yours in around sort of 2010-ish at Ultimo, I think, in particular. So, yeah, definitely been around for a while. And I guess being in optics for so long and being in touch with so many parts of the industry in that training capacity that you have, can you summarize what you see as the biggest challenge that we currently face?
For sure. And you're right. At ACOD, if I can just add, at ACOD, we have a privileged position, I think, in many ways. We're in touch with just about the entire industry. And it gives us a bird's eye view of what's going on in many ways. We don't know certain areas as deeply as others, but I reckon we've got this bird's eye view. So we're seeing the corporates, the independents, the associations, the university and colleges. We're seeing Australia and New Zealand. And yet there are all sorts of challenges coming and going, but it feels really clear at the moment that from a dispensing retail point of view, the two main challenges we're seeing at the moment is still training and a lack of training. And I've been crowing on about that in our industry for years. But in more recent years, recruitment, the recruitment of appropriate staff, the retention of staff, the training up then of that staff, that's been challenging for our industry, watching them wrestle with it and wrestling with them. And I've got a few ideas how our industry and our culture could possibly address that.
Yeah, and that's really exciting that you mentioned those parts, because I'm sure that a lot of businesses across the spectrum when it comes to optics in Australia and New Zealand, for that matter, have that issue. I mean, the issue of people and when we're talking training and recruitment and retention, these are fundamentally, I guess, a personnel challenge. And as we know with any business, that is one of the toughest part of the business. And that's not going into the specifics of the technicality within the industry. So, you're right. And in our previous discussions, you've mentioned to me that there's, up to 5,000 untrained optical assistants out there impacting the industry. How do you see this affecting optical practices and patient care?
Oh, absolutely. 5,000, that's a number that I've sort of grabbed out of the air. But when you think of how many practices in Australia and who's training, it could be a lot more than 5,000, Mike, honestly. And optical assistants, I don't want to dismiss the role that they play. Oh my gosh, they are fundamental to the industry at the moment. But we have thousands of people who are employed in practices, being shown a little bit of training on site perhaps, but they are engaging in dispensing in some form or another, untrained formally, unqualified formally, performing sometimes advanced optical services. And this is what really concerns me. The impact they can have on the industry is often under-recognized. In fact, some of us have talked about this for years, but as you talk to the labs, and ACOD's really connected to all the labs around Australia, oh my gosh, the labs are in a great position to make comment here because they see the quality of orders coming through, sometimes crazy orders, sometimes ridiculous. Mike, when I talk to lab managers, every manager has heard that example of someone ringing up and ordering a high minus lens, and it'll be high minus. We need you to grind it thin as possible. And can you give us knife edge with that as well? Have you heard that before, Mike?
Oh, yeah. I've heard that and a few more. Well, I'll tell you one after you mentioned that, which sort of knocked me over the other day. But yeah.
So there's no doubt optical assistants can do some nice dispensing for simple prescriptions. But the fact is they are never taught or shown principal powers. They don't understand standard axis notation. So they cannot look at a prescription and predict where the thickness will lie, which is going to determine frame shapes and designs and so on. They're never given much of an introduction to prism, have no idea, if I can say it sensitively, about DPE, the differential prismatic effect that might occur between the two lenses in a completed pair of specs. They're usually pretty lightweight on standards. So they're in the deep end. It's not their fault. It's just that they're out there performing optical services, haven't got any idea. I know for a fact that they feel internally unconfident in what they're doing. And the results it's all over the place. Everyone loses when our thousands of optical assistants are untrained. Customers not getting the service they need. Businesses aren't building up their practice. Lens design sales are being lost. Remakes will be happening. Non-adapts will certainly be happening. And remember, every non-adapt doesn't turn into a remake because most non-adapts never represent. The retail data shows that an unhappy customer, doesn't matter how much we say to them, would you like to come back and have that checked or whatever if you have an issue? The retail data suggests that an unhappy customer doesn't return. They simply go elsewhere or they drop whatever they've purchased. So the impact of these unsupervised optical assistants, I think, is having a huge impact on the industry. The labs will back up what I'm saying, and training has got to be the solution.
I mean, you mentioned so many aspects there, and it points to the fact that it is such a technical industry that we're in, and really the barrier of entry is quite low. So anyone can be in the practice. Well, I'll say the term dispensing, but they're not actually dispensing. They're conducting the activities and the role of what a dispenser would otherwise do. And that, as you've mentioned, can lead to so many complex, situations where they're not adept to handling it. And so training becomes crucial. And I guess in light of that, what do you see as being the key benefits of proper training? It might be an obvious question, but from your experience, when they do receive this training in the way in particular of, say, a Cert 4 in optical dispensing, and that elevate an optical assistant to a dispenser, what are some of the benefits you've seen in practices?
For sure. I think in the last question, I said when there's a lack of training, everyone loses. If I could turn that around, when staff are trained well, everyone wins. The benefits go out there. So there's no doubt the customer in front of the dispenser is going to receive a greater attention to detail, better lens advice, better service, and so on. The practice is going to thrive. Better sales, increased sales. So the optometrists benefit because they hand over their prescription to the dispenser, and the dispenser's work enhances the refraction, makes the optom look good. Oh, if I could just emphasize, Mike, the opposite of that, which is what really concerns me, is that when an optometrist hands over the prescription to an untrained dispenser, the work of the untrained optical assistant can actually undermine the work, make the specs absolutely unwearable. Customer will never adapt, say, to those new progressives if mono PDs, mono heights, frame adjustment, the lens design, the recommendation and the advice, if that's not correct, customer cannot adapt in many cases, goes off. And I often wonder of the psychology of that customer who's wearing something that they can't adapt to. What are they thinking? There's no doubt they're possibly thinking that optom got those numbers wrong, or they're thinking, did they respond in the chair wrong? When the optometrist said 1 or 2, oh, gee, should I have said 2 instead of 1? Crazy responses. Or they're going to think they're not adaptable themselves. It's their own fault. Or they're going to blame that wacky multifocal progressive lens design. Oh, what did they give me? The work of the optical assistant, untrained assistant who undermined everything and accidentally wrecked it, they fly under the radar. Often they don't realize that is where the point. So the optoms lose. The dispenser, I know, is unconfident in their own work and they struggle. Oh, can I mention the labs? I've talked about the labs already, and you'll know this, Mike. They lose because they get crazy orders or they get unreasonable demands for remakes. And that concerns me here in Australia. Sometimes we think, doesn't matter if it's wrong, we'll just order a remake when the customer comes back. If they come back, let's put it back on the lab. I'm like, no, the lab does fabulous work. Don't put it back on the lab. And when we do that in Australia, where does it turn up? Turns up in the price we pay for our lenses, because the lab then has to account for that in their pricing schedule. So if we train up our dispensers, everyone's a winner. I reckon the labs will be absolutely thrilled as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be a bit of a win-win situation, because obviously the patient's getting a better product and a better service, and obviously the lab is be able to provide a more I guess, a better service as well. So it's a situation where everyone's a winner if we know what we're doing. You mentioned being trained well. I'm assuming, well, I know that there are a whole heap of ways that training takes place. If I speak to, say, and you're fortunate to have the perspective of seeing how independents train compared to, say, how a corporate organization will train, do you see much of a difference between the two with how they approach training that's done, I guess, unofficially? And when you say train well, what does that mean?
Let's start with the second part of that question. Good training, well trained, is the right person's recruited with a clear understanding they're going to go into training and then get some little bit of hands-on at work, but then they're enrolled into the Certificate 4. We think the Certificate 4 is an awesome base level of training for our industry. Everyone comes into that, you're going to come out with good, basic, generic dispensing. It's not the end of the road. Training goes on after that. Happy to chat about that if you'd like as well. But also with great supportive supervision at the workplace so that as that trainee, as that optical assistant is undergoing their training with a college, maybe like ACOD, then they're getting that workplace support as well. Second part of that question was comparing the independents to corporates. If it's all right, it's too general to make too many comments. More specifically, can I say it depends on the independent, depends on the corporate. There is one major corporate who maybe should remain unnamed for now. They are enrolling heaps of people into the Certificate 4 with a good level of support, probably in industry best. I've been around for years, Michael. I remember in the days gone by when another corporate was training well, this current corporate is exceeding the standards of previous years. So they are setting the benchmark, and I let everybody know that. Some of the corporates are not training at all. And if I do cold calling, sometimes, Mike, if I'm in a particular place, I'll drop into practices. Just about everyone's heard of ACOD. Everyone's seen the ACOD videos or whatever. And if I drop into this particular corporate, if an optom is there, they'll come out and grab me and say, for goodness sake, James, can you start training our staff? They're affecting my reputation here. And I'm like, mate, you've got to get that message through to your management and get them on board. Now, Mike, if I can switch to independents, there is no doubt some independents are outstanding. They have got a mindset for training. They regularly put people in the course, and their progress rates and completion rates. I can think of a number of practices. Outstanding recruitment, training, 100% completion for their students over the last 10 years or so. They set the benchmark. But then at the other end, Mike, some of the independents as well are absolutely hopeless, and they're not training at all, or they're sending perhaps someone along to the course with inadequate support. So it depends where you look. There's a mixture in general, and ACOD wants to support the entire industry. Everyone get trained up. Then when they're qualified, people are empowered to move around our industry. I know that's not what employers want to hear when they put someone in the course, that you've actually empowered someone, but you empower them to be a better dispenser when they're employed with you. And that benefit lives in our industry forever. They're trained. They have their qualification on their resume for life. If they're like me, they might leave the industry. They come back richer for it.
I think the take home there is whether you're an independent or a corporate, the challenges remain the same, with regards to you can do it well or you cannot do it well. And I feel like, in today's episode, we're just highlighting what that looks like and obviously creating a clear path for people with an option with regards to what they could do if they do want to sort of start that journey of training and getting those assistants, particularly through to being dispensers and the like. You mentioned recruitment. Recruitment for optical assistants and dispensers has become more challenging, especially post-COVID. What do you think has caused this shift?
Great question. Bit of a challenging question. A little bit of oversight. And not being a recruitment specialist, just having some observations. The industry seemed to do the same thing in terms of recruitment pre-COVID, and it worked reasonably well. Still lacking training, obviously. Moving into COVID, everything went crackers, and there was a shortage of staff everywhere. And at ACOD, we had employers ringing us saying things like, James, I've recruited for years and years. I'm getting 0 applicants. Can you find us a trainee and send them our way. I had to say, we're not a recruitment agency. We're a college. Our students are all gainfully employed. You got to find the right person themselves. So COVID smashed it. There was a lot of people left the industry, a lot of movement. After COVID, we got the impression that employment prospects improved for a while. But just recently, Michael, the feedback we're getting, anecdotal feedback, sounds like it's really tough again at the moment. We've had a few people contact us again saying we can't find anyone. So why is it happening in optical? I'm going to say broader economic conditions, it's not just optical, are at work here, making it tough for a lot of places. But I think particularly with our industry in optical, I just think we're not good at recruiting. We're a bit of a sleepy industry. We don't talk to each other well. And we've got a lot of business owners out there just doing the best they can. So I just think we need to get a little bit sharper, wiser, get some more professional advice, and just wake up that recruitment is extremely important for the workplace, deserves a bit more attention, and to get the advice and the support and any keys. And I have got a suggestion when the moment's right.
Yeah. Well, that's my next question. How do you think the optical professional can create an attractive, sustainable career pathway for potential recruits that gets them into the industry and I guess gets you finding the right particular person, assuming that you're going for somebody with no experience?
Oh, I feel like there's two parts there. You mentioned something about career pathways in our industry. Oh, can I suggest, I think our industry is awesome. We've got wonderful career pathways which are there already. They're just not well known or recognized, but often the certificate for can be the key to opening up those pathways. So again, in our privileged position, we see dispensers move into other places. The most obvious pathway is into management and then possibly ownership or directorship. And a great dispenser does not necessarily make a great practice manager, but the industry needs better practice managers, that's for sure. And some of our dealing with practice owners in the last few years, when we deal with, say, an optometry practice owner, optometrists could make fabulous optometrists, doesn't make them a great business manager. And can I say sensitively, I get the impression some of them are hopeless. They need a good manager. A good dispenser who's got those skills can move into management. All those other career pathways as well, Mike, things like lab work, lab manager, frames, frame rep, contact lens work, and of course, education and training is another potential career pathway that the certificate for opens you up to. And at ACOD, we celebrate anyone's career improvement. I know when we lose an employee to another position, it can be a bit tricky and a bit challenging. And at ACOD, we've had some great ACOD teachers move on to amazing career opportunities, which we celebrate, absolutely celebrate. And we've now got teachers of ACOD in senior training roles with some of the large corporates and senior training roles with some of the lens labs and the universities. So we're really thrilled with that. Coming back to the other part of that question, how do we initiate recruitment? How can we improve our recruiting? And this is what's occurred to us more recently, Michael, is that in the past, in our industry, we have advertised for staff and it's really looked like a retail assistant. It's come and work in a practice, and the industry, the culture of our industry, which is what really concerns me, has been to employ someone and wait quite a long time before thinking, oh, this person looks great, they're interested, should we offer them dispensing training? I'm really thankful I got offered fairly early, but I've noticed in our industry, people sometimes wait 2 or 3 years before suggesting an optical assistant moves into their formal certificate for training. So we're suggesting when you start recruiting, keep dispensing in mind. In fact, we think one of the big answers to the industry is no more optical assistants going forward. When we recruit 100% for a person who is career-minded and wants to move directly into training, offer them a career. And there are multiple benefits here, we think. And by the way, we've been sharing this for a while, and some practices have already adopted this, and they're sharing that some of their results have been awesome. it works this way. When making a job advertisement, include in that advertisement the fact that they'll be fully supported, paid for formal training as part of their development and career pathway. When that advertisement's put out there, the person who is looking for a short-term retail position who may be a little flaky in their commitment, maybe they're not a long-term, they're inclined not to apply because they can see, oh, there's actually formal training attached to this. Not everyone's after that. But people who would not have applied for a retail position see, oh my gosh, you're offering training, paid for training. Doesn't happen a lot these days that you get funded, paid for training by an employer. You're being offered not just a job for now, you're being offered a recognized qualification for your career, for your life. Other people will apply for that. Possibly people a little bit more motivated and possibly a little bit more academically inclined and up for the training. The results we've heard from the practices who have tried that are like, oh my gosh, James, more applicants, more appropriate. And Michael, when I've visited those stores and met them sometimes in their first few months of employment, they've come up to me and said, James, I'm new here and I'm into the ACOD course very soon. The difference has been amazing. So we're telling people when you're having a struggle with recruitment, include this in your advertisement. It's going to draw more fruit through for you. And we're thinking then everyone is on a pathway to help our industry. We're aiming for fully qualified dispensers or every new recruit heading into trained supervision on their way to their Cert 4. Bingo, we're changing the culture of an industry and things are going to improve.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. And I think focusing on that, on the training and making it a big thing from the outset, I think not only attracts maybe more people, but I think it attracts the right person. And I think with recruitment, that's the biggest challenge is how can you find the right person? And a little tip like that can go a long way to helping you find the right person for the role, knowing, what a dispenser does. With that particular, I guess, suggestion, does that apply whether you're looking for a casual, a part-time or a full-time? How would you, I guess, approach a casual? I mean, full-time, I would assume definitely. But if it's a casual or a part-time, do you do the same thing?
It can still work. Certainly, I understand smaller practices might need a number of part-time or casual employees for sure. Makes no difference to their training. If they're going to participate in any level of dispensing, then we believe you're on a pathway of training and that pathway should lead to the certificate 4. If the person's been recruited purely for admin or managerial purposes or something similar like that, then they're not dispensing, sweet. But if they're being employed for any dispensing, they're automatically on a learning pathway. You're on the way to Cert 4, and the delivery of the Certificate 4 now is really flexible. Well, I can only speak for ACOD especially, super flexible. So a part-time person can enroll in ACOD and complete the course more quickly. A full-time person can take a bit longer if they need to. A casual person who's unconfident can take a longer to complete the course. No extensions needed, no additional fees. Just keep in contact with our college and students can go through at their preferred rate. And we've had some students take 3 or 4 years, and we're really proud that we're able to support them in their part-time work because they had other things happening in their life. One particular student had 2 babies at separate times along the way, and she was able to juggle her training in and out of the course. To see her qualify, Mike, was fantastic. So there's flexibility there. I think it applies to everybody.
And with this more structured training, I guess, and it's having an emphasis on training as part of your recruitment and I guess the retention strategy with the staff, the business owner or the person, I guess, in the authority to make this call for that particular business, there are some hesitations that can come along with this. One of the ones that you mentioned was, the fact that it maybe makes them more approachable or, they might jump jobs or, things like that. How would you speak to that professional that's in that position that's determining the training and implementing a structured training program? Like, if they're hesitant, what sort of words would you have for them? What would you say to them?
Sensitive question. And there's a lot of tension in all industries about how much do you empower your own staff? How much do you train them? There was a corporate years ago that used to complain to us at TAFE and said James, we're training all this staff, but they're leaving. So the big key there, and famous Richard Branson, he has a saying out there, something along the lines of, don't quote me, but something along the lines of, train your staff so they're empowered to leave, but treat your staff so they want to stay.
Yeah.
And I think that is absolutely awesome. At the same time, we've had one particular corporate say, James, I don't think we can afford training at the moment. And this was an HR person. And it's true, training does cost. But oh my gosh, the response is, can you afford not to train? To not train, then you're going to have an untrained staff, which is going to impact in so many ways. And we've already spoken about it. So first of all, I think it's a shift in attitude that employers need to realize we don't own staff. They are independent, progressive professionals themselves. We train them and empower them for the benefit they bring now, doesn't necessarily beholden that employee for years and years or whatever, that you're going to make ROI, that return on investment, immediately as they're going through their training. The other thing I like to point out is when someone is in training, they are far more engaged at the workplace. They're not very unlikely to leave in that period of a couple of years. So you're going to have a more engaged, more focused, career-minded employee in that time, more appreciative, more committed. And then when their training's completed, it's absolutely appropriate to have some kind of formal recognition. You're at this level, an incremental pay rise would be lovely, an appropriate celebration, increased responsibilities reflecting their new qualification, and so on. And then thinking of how to engage them and engage them further into their career, because it doesn't stop with Certificate 4. And then you've got things like CPD, ODA, Optical Dispensers Australia, which are only been around for 2 or 3 years, Michael, but setting the Aussie world on fire with new access to CPD. If employers are happy to support that, then they're going to see even more ROI in the life of that employee.
Yeah, and you're speaking there to the retention component, which is just as important, if not more important, than the training, because that's where, as a business, the longer that you have a staff member, the more valuable they become and the more value that they provide to the business. And so, you've spoken to some steps there for retention. And in your experience, what have you seen with the stores that you've come across that have been able to retain staff? Well, what are some of the key, indicators that you've noticed that store has or adopts, or philosophies that they employ to ensure that they do have long-serving staff members? And I guess alternatively, what have you seen where, it's the opposite?
For sure. Well, the opposite is a lack of recognition of their achievement in Certificate 4, a lack of interest in their professional development, this attitude of, we own you somehow and you owe us for this development. That's a killer in terms of store culture. That employee is going to walk sooner or later. And sometimes, Mike, in our privileged conversations with students, a student will open up and talk about the unhappy culture of their store. I'm putting myself through. The moment I get this qual, I'm walking.
Yeah.
And while ACOD never engages in HR issues, we hear these stories and we quietly think, good luck to you, get your qual, you'll be a blessing to our industry. But as we started to refer to in that previous question, engaging that staff member past the Certificate 4 at the workplace, no doubt, increased responsibilities, support for ODA, attendance at trade fairs, ODMA fairs coming up soon. Lovely to see staff bringing people, whether they're local or from regional or interstate, seeing them attend events like that, and supporting them in future training as well. And would love to talk about ACOD's next project to further engage staff, and that is a diploma level qualification.
Well, you've taken the words out of my mouth, because my next question is going to be, what does the future of training and recruitment, well, maybe the training side of things more in the optical profession, and what does it look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, you're asking me to do a bit of crystal ball gazing?
Yes, please.
I love it. Got to have a tiny bit of context as well. The training atmosphere for dispensing not being good in previous decades. Training and respect for the training had gone down for years and years. And in my days at TAFE, we saw enrollments going down over the years. even launching ACOD 8 years ago, my business advice was, is this a bit risky? Clearly, there doesn't appear to be a demand for training. Chetty and I, we saw it was probably the quality that was being delivered, and increased training had a potential. And while I'm saying that, Mike, can I just say, in reflecting on this level of service and other colleges, it's not the teachers. Teachers in optical are awesome all around the place. It's the management and conduct of those colleges that have been so poor in many cases. All right, so ACOD comes along. There were some incentives in COVID. Enrollments have been up. Enrollments have grown exponentially compared to pre-COVID. It's awesome. And the reputation of ACOD is out there. And even though we've come off a high in terms of the crazy huge incentives that were there in the COVID period, when ScoMo was offering training and apprenticeships for everybody, even though we're coming off that height, we're still at a much higher level of enrollments now than we were, say, pre-COVID. This is going to continue. So there's going to be more certificate for training out there for sure.
Okay.
But that's not going to be enough. In addition to that, there are other training options, more advanced options around the place. Not many. Some of them are pretty elite and specialized and pretty expensive. But at ACOD, we've identified that there is a need for a post-qualification on top of the certificate for, and really happy to announce that ACOD has been working for quite a time on a diploma level qualification. We're in the preparation of it. The preparations are virtually finished. We considered whether to get it formally accredited or unaccredited, and we've gone the formal track. So that is with the government now. It takes a long time, a lot of hoops to jump through, but that is coming for those career-minded dispensers to gain another formal qualification. If I could just make a sideways comment comparing accredited training with unaccredited training, and I don't want to dismiss the unaccredited training that is out there in our industry. There are all sorts of courses out there. Accredited versus unaccredited, they can both be high quality or they can both be poor. Or for example, the certificate for in dispensing, depending on the college, not the teachers, the college that was delivering it, it had a pretty poor reputation at times. But accredited training is something that the student and the employee knows, has had formal preparation, has had industry input put into it. It's got accountability to government bodies, accountable for their behaviours, and can qualify then for certain government support and subsidies, which unaccredited training obviously cannot. So that's why it's taken ACOD a bit longer to get our diploma ready. It will get passed eventually with full accreditation, and that's going to be available in Australia and New Zealand for those who want to go further. The other part of ongoing training is no doubt going to be filled beautifully by, again, Optical Dispensers Australia. ODA have jumped into a massive gap that our industry has had for years and years. We've had no active professional body providing support to dispensers on multiple levels, but most importantly, CPD, continuing professional development. Oh my gosh, for years and years, dispensers gained their qual, and that was it. Almost zero input for years. Now ODA, of which ACOD is a major partner with, along with all sorts of labs and frame companies and other industry groups, we're seeing their membership grow rapidly. We're seeing a comprehensive CPD program. Oh my gosh, we're changing the industry together with ODA, Mike, and it's very exciting. So I think the culture and the training environment is on the improve.
I think that the beauty in that is you've got the foundational Cert 4 style of training, which is so critical, as we've discussed, but there is that continuation. As you've mentioned, education does not stop. It continues. And the beauty of having ODA and ACOD there, focusing in on that training as a holistic, I guess, vehicle, it does provide the path for people that do want to value it as much as they should. And I guess that your passion, again, I mentioned that earlier on, is so evident in this space.
It is an exciting environment. I just want to make the point that the certificate for, a lot of people have seen that as the end goal. No, it's your beginning goal. It is your base level, broad qualification. And it could be that for some dispensers, that is enough in terms of their career development. They're doing other things as well, whatever it is. We think the Certificate 4, absolutely essential, got that international recognition. You can move around with it. But then for our industry, for career-minded people, Diploma, ODA, ongoing CPD. Well, actually, I think CPD is essential for everybody to get that access. And the Diploma sits there for those who are ready to go to the next step.
Yeah, really excited about the Diploma component of that and how that evolves. Is there a time frame for that, or is that still in the indefinite stage? And am I pushing it a bit too much to ask that question now?
It's a great question because it has been in the planning for years. We've had a few challenges over the years that had to take priority, but it's always been there since day one. We've said we need a Diploma. The industry's talked about it, and would it be accredited or unaccredited and so on. Yeah. It is virtually ready to go. I don't know if you heard, Michael, or your listeners, but the Certificate 4 had not been reviewed or updated for over 10 years. And so ACOD spoke to industry, and we triggered that review, not realizing that review would put a little delay in the Diploma review with the government. So we thought reviewing the Certificate 4 was awesome. Didn't expect government to say, oh, your Diploma now goes on hold, ACOD. And we're like, what? Can't government do two things at once? It would seem not. Okay. But while we're mentioning that review is virtually completed. The Diploma review is kicked up and running again right now. And the Certificate 4, if anyone's concerned about how up-to-date and current it is, we've been deeply involved with industry in the review of the curriculum. Colleges have been involved, different associations and groups, all sorts of working committees. That has been sent for final sign-off. It's not signed off yet, so I'm not supposed to refer to it too much yet, except to say we're thrilled with the improvements. And I've been involved in a couple of reviews in the past. Other TAFE teachers, if it's all right to mention my old mate Steve Darris, he was involved in reviews in the past. And Steve was part of this review. Really excited to say that he and I both think it's the best review we've ever seen. And, of course, some new things have been included. Some old things are being dropped out. We think it's going to be far more functional. Wait and see this improvement. It's close.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, if there is a major difference between the prior course and this course, and I'm just speculating, is there will there be like a bridging course where if there are some new courses that other, say, dispensers, again, I'm assuming that there might be new modules incorporated, and let's say a dispenser wants to touch back on that. Is that something that is possible? Or is that still too early to tell?
Everything's possible, certainly possible. There'll always be full recognition for anyone who's got the Certificate 4 as it stands now. Yeah, anyone moving to the new course, when it's approved, will undergo the new course and get that full recognition. That full course will be embedded in the Diploma course. So someone can do the Certificate 4 and move on to the Diploma. Someone can do the Diploma, they get the Certificate 4. Someone can go into the Diploma, and if they want to jump off early, take the Certificate 4 with them, and so on. If there's anyone out there who has previous qual and they want to upskill, you just talk to the college. We can provide all sorts of gap training, bridging courses, and so on to bring people up to speed. But we think the Diploma, which sits separately with 8 or 10 optical-focused units, not as many non-optical that the Certificate 4 had to have. I'd suggest to anyone who's previously done the Cert 4, go straight to the Diploma and look to the college to fill in any gaps along the way.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I guess there'll be more information as it all rolls out, and you guys were pretty active in promoting that, so people will know that information. And maybe there's a website or somewhere that, at the end you can direct us to, which we can have in the show notes, so people can go and at least keep an eye out with these changes, because they're pretty radical in the scheme of training with regards to what's been happening in our industry. I think on two levels, the review at the first part, but then the incorporation of a Diploma, I think, on the second part, which is, really two, monumental shifts with regards to training, especially in the dispensing space. And that's not taking into consideration the ODA and the CPD points, which is a whole other thing as well. But again, the totality of that whole system is so powerful and empowering, I feel, and it's definitely something the industry as a whole, should be involved with. As we're wrapping up today, I guess for the professionals in the optical industry who want to start improving their recruitment and their training efforts today, where should they begin and what should they do? And how do they roll that into their practice?
Oh, The first thing is to recognize it's really important. I think sometimes it's lacked the recognition there. Secondly, to be open to change and to be teachable. Sometimes I think humans, sometimes we're a little bit stuck in our ways. We're a little bit unteachable, particularly if we get a little bit older, perhaps. And I think the optical industry might have a reputation, when I talk to other industries where I'm not that experienced, I think optical has a reputation for being a little bit staid, a little bit stuck in our ways sometimes. Oh my gosh, Michael, over the years talking to people about the importance of digital measuring instruments. Let's get away from those old PD rules for PDs and so on. That stuff changed decades ago, and yet still there are parts of our industry that lack that openness to be teachable. So I think it's realize you need to adjust for the future. Then it's the culture in terms of recruiting. As I said, include that this position, we assume it will include training to a professional position, include in the advertisement and the promotions, the fact that that's all embedded there to attract the right candidates. Then in that recruitment, in the interview itself, yeah, you do need to recruit for the right person. And if I can just say, those people skills, those communication, people skills, listening skills, a little bit of humor, all that sort of stuff, that is critical for a great dispenser as well. Sometimes the course focuses on lens theory and practical skills. We teach people skills pretty broadly. It's hard to teach it. Some people say if you don't have it, you got to fake it or whatever. I think employers need to recognize it's beholden on them to recruit the right person, the right personality, maybe a little bit bubbly, people focused. Remind your recruits, those applicants, you're going to be helping people with their vision. You need to be patient. You're going to help everyone in the community. So it is the difficult customer, the challenging customer, someone who is unwell, someone who is losing their vision. So you can expect them to be depressed and a bit cranky or whatever. Recruit for the right personality, then give them the optical training. The optical training is actually the easier part. The lens knowledge, not that challenging. The practical skills we can develop with practice, get the right recruit, attract them with the course, get them in the system. And together, if we can change the culture of the industry, it's a huge thing to suggest, let's change the culture of our industry, but it has not been healthy in the past. I think everyone agrees. And if we can head down this pathway, if we can turn that ship around in a slightly different direction, I think we're all going to benefit. And I think it's the certificate for, and that recruitment is going to make a difference.
I think training plays a huge part in setting the culture aspect of any business, I feel. So it can't do anything detrimental. So I think, jumping on that training bandwagon and reaching out to people like yourself to get information about how it can be incorporated into their business, I think is the next step. And I guess in saying that, if anyone wants to get in touch with you or wants to find out more about the courses that we've discussed or anything else that we've mentioned for that matter, what's the best way people can contact you?
Oh, for sure. People can just hop onto our website. We're very transparent. Phone numbers are there. So that is ACOD, acod.edu.au. And then everything flows from there. ODA, you can access ODA via the ACOD website as well. And feel free to contact us for a chat. Between Chetty Kalich and I, Chetty Kalich, awesome at our IT and admin, and he replies to emails instantly. But if you want to have a chat about things, then you call me. If I can't take the call, I'll call you back. Love chatting industry type things. And I think ACOD's got lots of fantastic support and solutions for practices out there. Get into it.
Yeah, I love it. I love your passion and kicking some awesome goals. So thank you so much for your time today. Really a lot of insights and a lot of gold nuggets there for our listeners. So I hope that they've taken something away from it. James, thanks so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Mike, it's been fun. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us on The Focused View, proudly presented by Optical. It's been our privilege to share the insights and stories that resonate deeply with the eye care community. We hope today's episode has not only inspired you, but also armed you with the practical strategies and innovative ideas to help you enhance your practice and professional journey. If you found value in our conversation, we'd be grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform and share this episode with your colleagues It helps us reach more eye care professionals like you and grow our community of visionaries. Stay connected by subscribing to The Focused View and visiting our website www.thefocusedview.com.au for additional resources and episode summaries. We look forward to your company again in our next episode. Until then, keep focused. I'm Michael Nasser. Bye for now.